Greetings, Gerald Power Gamer here doing some Renegade GT practice against the Road Warrior of the Midwest, Shannon Shoemaker. Now we're going to be playing a 2,300 point battle using the control scenario. Since this is Grand Tournament practice, we're going to be using clocks. Now I believe the clocks for this tournament are going to be 65 minutes, but we're using 60 minutes a turn. So here we go. This table is based off of Epic Dwarf Map 7 for those of you who may be interested. There are two each of the following: Height 6 blocking terrain, Height 6 difficult terrain, Height 2 hills, obstacles, and flat difficult terrain pieces. Now Shannon won the road for sides and set his Varangur up as shown. On the bottom half of the screen is my Empire Dust Army, and they are as follows from left to right. We've got Enslaved Guardian Horde with the Blessing of the Gods. We've got a Revenant Horde with the Brew of Strength. Behind them is a Cursed High Priest with Heal 4, Surge 10, and Mirrodin's Amulet of the Fireheart. At the very back, we've got two hordes of Guardian Archers. Back up on the front line, we've got two Mummy Regiments. Behind the second Mummy Regiment, there's a Cursed High Priest with Heal 4, Surge 10, and the Healing Shroud. A regiment of skeletal crossbowmen with the Brew of Keen-Eyedness. Behind them, a regiment of skeleton archers with the Heart-Seeking Chant. Next to them, there's a horde of revenant chariots with the Potion of the Caterpillar. And next to them, we've got two regiments of scavengers. Now, for this game, my Scorpion Husk model is representing a special character that they made for this GT. It's called Sam Hain and has the following stats. It's speed 10, melee 3, defense 4, 3 attacks. It's 15 fearless. It's worth 200 points. It's height 2. It can be placed on either a 25 by 25 or 50 by 50 base. It's got blast D3, shambling, fly, stealth, ensnare, crushing strength 2, life leech 2, brutal, elite, vicious, and it counts as an individual. Now, usually when playing my Empire Dust, I try to place my Guardian Archers in such a way that I can make the most of their shooting. Now, being a very experienced player, Shannon didn't make it very easy for me to find clear lanes of fire for them to shoot at things. As you can see, as he placed his units in a refused flank setup, taking good advantage of the terrain. The Guardian Archers were there to threaten the Horse Raiders if they came around that flank, while at the same time supporting the pass between the two hills. My initial thought was to place heavy in the central location, holding that area, while at the same time using my more mobile right flank to work its way around somewhat like an oblique line attack. That was my initial plan anyway, so we'll see how that's. From left to right, the Varangur setup is as follows. We've got two regiments of Horse Raiders. They've exchanged their throwing axes for bows. We've got a Horde of Fallen with the Potion of the Caterpillar. We have a Mounted Chieftain with the Banner of the Griffin. Another Horde of Fallen. This one has the Brew of Strength. We have a Regiment of Mounted Sons of Corrigan with Vicious. We have a Mounted Scald with a Loot of Insatiable Darkness. Another Regiment of Mounted Sons of Corrigan with the Wine of Elvenkind. Now, both of these Mounted Sons of Corrigan have the Fury upgrade. On the other flank, we have the Living Legend Magnilda of the Fallen. There's a King on Chimera with the Brew of Haste. And finally, there is his Sam Hain model represented by the Ogre. Now, I won the roll for the first turn. Both my Guardian Archers were given a halt command. The Guardians, Revenants, Mummy Regiments, Mirrodin, Cursed High Priest all advance up 5 inches. The Healing Shroud Cursed High Priest just moves up to toe into the woods. Now, the Skeleton Horse Archers advance 9 inches in front of the Crossbowmen and pivot towards the King on Chimera. The Chariot Horde advances up to touch the flank of the Skeleton Horse Archers. My Sam Hain model moves up slightly with both regiments of the Scavengers to protect my flank and position to threaten any models coming over the blocking terrain. Now, unfortunately, my shooting is just out of range. For a moment, I toyed with the idea of surging my horse archers forward, but that would have put them easily within charge range of the king on Chimera. Instead, I got the bright idea to surge my mummy regiment. I was hoping for, at most, maybe a bump of 3 to 5 inches. The Healing Shroud Cursed High Priest got 8 successes. Thankfully, though, my other Cursed High Priest was able to surge up the second mummy regiment. It got 6 successes, so we ended up with the positioning there. I've got some support going on. So, hindsight, I should have been more patient and kept my battle line together. Varangur turn 1. On the left flank, the Horse Archer Regiment moves up, being careful to stay out of line of sight. Both fallen hordes move up. The second Horse Archer Regiment moves up patiently. The Mounted King and Vicious Mounted Sons of Corrigan, along with the Mounted Skull, also move up for positioning. So, the nimble Mounted Sons of Corrigan are in charge range of my mummy regiment, but their final placement would end up on the obstacle, and since the king on Chimera is just out of charge range of my mummy regiment, both the nimble sons and the king on Chimera just move for positioning. Now, Magnilda uses her one-time flying ability. She charges my horse archers. She's able to do 3 damage to it. Shannon Samhain model flies over the blocking terrain and just positions for the next turn. Empire Dust turn 2. The Guardian Horde charges the Pathfinder Horde of Fallen and does 5 damage points to it, but it's unable to rout it. Both Guardian Archers halt, take shots on the Brew of Strength Horde of the Fallen. They manage to do 6 total damage and they waver it. The Horde of Revenants advance and pivot to try and give the archers better line of sight to their target. After verifying the Vicious Regiment of Mounted Sons is out of range and the nimble Mounted Sons are in the front arc, the Mummy Horde that is closest to the hill halts. The second Mummy Regiment also halts. The Skeleton Archers sidestep and pivot. The crossbowmen shoot at Magnilda, doing 2 damage. The Chariot Horde moves into position, shoots at Magnilda, and is then surged into her. They rout her in hand-to-hand combat. My Samhain model charges Shannon's Samhain model and only manages to do 3 damage. Now, this is a preview of something that's going to happen throughout this entire battle report. My Samhain, 3 hits with all the stuff he's got going for him. I very rarely hit twice. Usually I ended up hitting only 1 time. Oh well, what are you going to do? So anyway, both regiments of my scavengers positioned to react to the threat of the king on Chimera. Varangur turn 2. King on Chimera completes a successful hindered charge against the flank of the Mummy Regiment. Now, even though Shannon's Samhain model is unable to fly, it still has a move of 10 and is an individual, so is able to complete a charge against my chariot's flank. The nimble Mounted Sons of Corrigan charge the other Mummy Regiment. The Scald moves in to inspiring range. Both horse archers move around for positioning. The wavered Fallen Horde backs up and pivots to make room for the Vicious Mounted Sons to multi-charge in with the other Fallen Horde's countercharge. The Mounted King charges the Horde of Revenants to keep them from charging the Vicious Mounted Sons. The Samhain is only able to do 5 damage to the Chariot Horde. The King on Chimera is able to do 11 damage to the Mummy Regiment, but is unable to rout them. The Nimble Mounted Sons do 10 damage to the other Mummy Regiment, but also fail to rout them. The Mounted King does 3 damage to the Revenant Horde. The combined charge of the Fallen and the Mounted Sons obliterate the Guardians, and then they position as shown. Empire Dust turn 3. Again, both Guardian Archers halt in the shooting phase and shoot at the Vicious Mounted Sons. The Horde of Revenants countercharge the King and damage him, life leeching back a wound, but failing to rout him. Both Mummy Regiments successfully regenerate wounds and then multi-charge the nimble Mounted Sons of Corrigan. However, they are only able to do a small amount of damage and can't even waver it. The Mirrodin Cursed High Priest manages to heal 1 damage off the closest Mummy Regiment. The Chariot Horde moves forward to position itself in the rear of the King on Chimera. My Samhain and 1 Scavenger Regiment multi-charge Shannon Samhain. My second regiment of scavengers moves over into scoring position. The Guardian Archers manage to do combined damage of 10 to the vicious mounted sons, and they end up routing them. My Samhain once again has a mediocre at best performance on his twin, and the multi-charge fails to rout. The crossbowmen and skeletal horse archers shoot at the king on Chimera, and then the chariot is successfully surged into rear. After all of that, still unable to rout him. Varangur turn 3. Shannon Samhain once again charges the flank of my chariot horde. The king on Chimera completes a hindered charge against the rear of the mummy regiment. The nimble mounted sons countercharges the other mummy regiment. The scald positions and successfully bane chants the mounted sons. Both fallen hordes multi-charge the revenant horde. The mounted king charges the right guardian archer horde, manages to do 2 damage to it. The horse archers move into position and shoot the other guardian archer horde, doing 3 damage. The Samhain routs the chariot horde. Both the king on Chimera and the mounted sons rout their mummy regiments and position as shown. The horde of revenants is routed and both fallen hordes position as shown. Empire of Dust turn 4. The left-hand guardian archers halt, and then in the shooting phase damage the closest horde of fallen. The Mirrodin cursed high priest moves up to try and block the other fallen horde. The right-hand guardian archer sidesteps and is surged into the flank of the foremost fallen horde, but the combined damage is only able to waver them. The skeleton archer cav pivots and moves back into the woods. Both the skeleton archer cav and the crossbowmen shoot at the king on Chimera and rout it. The furthest regiment of scavengers moves over into the center scoring zone. The other scavenger regiment moves over into upper right section of the board. Once again, my Samhain has a poor performance against his twin and fails to rout him. Varangur turn 4. Shannon Samhain charges the rear of the scavenger unit, does 2 damage, and then wavers them. The nimble mounted sons of Corrigan charge the regiment of crossbowmen and rout them, turning the face as shown. The fallen horde corkscrews to participate in a multi-charge with the mounted king against the skeleton horse archers. They rout them and then turn to face as shown. The wavered fallen horde turns to face, and both horse raider regiments shoot at the wounded guardian archers horde, managing to get it to 7 damage, but they once again fail to rout it. Empire of Dust turn 5. My Samhain moves into position to be surged into the rear of the mounted sons of Corrigan. The Healing Shroud cursed high priest moves into the woods. The Mirrodin cursed high priest moves off the hill and positions for inspiring and surging. The furthest regiment of scavengers moves further back into scoring position. The left guardian archer horde charges the flank of the remaining fallen horde and routs it, positioning as shown. The other guardian archer horde needed 4 successes to reach the remaining fallen horde, but of course I only got 3 successes. Thankfully, the Samhain is successfully surged into the rear of the fallen horde and routs it. Now, this is also going to be Varangur turn 5 because I forgot to take the picture. What basically happened is the furthest horse archer regiment comes around the hill to get clear line of sight to the guardian archer horde right there, right in front of the hill. The other horse archers just pivot and move backwards, and during the shooting phase, they both are able to rout the guardian archer horde that's facing him. The mounted king charges the other guardian archer and does 1 damage. Shannon Samhain finally routs the regiment of scavengers. The scald charges the other regiment of scavengers but fails to damage it. The regiment of mounted sons does a 180. Empire Dust turn 6. The Healing Shroud cursed high priest moves to block the mounted sons. The Mirrodin's cursed high priest moves to block the horse archers. My Samhain charges the horse archers on the hill but fails to rout them. The regiment of scavengers countercharges the mounted scald but fails to rout him. The remaining guardian archer horde just moves backwards. Varangur turn 6. The nimble mounted sons corkscrew around the cursed high priest and multi-charge the remaining guardian archer horde with the mounted chieftain routing them. The horse archers on the hill move back into scoring position. The mounted skull countercharges into the regiment of scavengers but fails to wound it again. There is no turn 7, but at this point it's clear to see the Varangur have won this game. Shannon even managed to handle his time management. He still had over a minute left on the clock. Final thoughts. Well, overall I'm happy with the performance of my Empire of Dust. The Varangur is a very hard-hitting elite army, and Shannon definitely knows how to use them. He's a great tactically minded general. Looking forward to a rematch. Thanks for watching, and as usual, would love to hear any comments or feedback on this report.